Okay, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about system feature codes, the dial by name directory, and also paging and intercom. Some of what we call the secondary services, but these are sometimes pretty important to some customers. And as we've done sales calls, demonstrations, customers really have hot buttons, and sometimes these are the features they're looking for. So let's talk about feature codes, and you can find your feature codes under Admin Feature Codes. What the feature codes are defined is when you dial into the system, like for example, your phone, if you picked up a phone and dialed *72, we can see right here that activates call forwarding. These are the feature codes that identify to the telephone system what service you're requesting. So as you saw when we installed did the telephone configuration, we put in specific feature codes. We had feature codes for call forwarding, do not disturb. We also had a feature code for voicemail. So you never really have to change these feature codes. These feature codes are here. If you ever want to, you can, but I guess the only reason why you'd ever really want to do it if you had your own application that was doing a SIP call or something maybe into the system, you had to have something specific for it, but you can change it here. But just remember, this is a global change. If you change the call forward all activate from *72 to *333, you're going to have to go to every phone if you want to have that feature code in that phone changed when someone presses options and they go into call forwarding and they hit call forwarding to dial that feature code. So just remember, these are global settings. And if you look, you can see some of these call waiting, camp on, there's the conference. If you want to look at a conference status, you could actually dial in. I mean, these feature codes here come with the Asterisk engine. The developers put this in. And like I said, you really don't ever have to change it, but it's good to have the ability to come and look. Like, for example, do not disturb, *78 to turn it on, *79 to turn it off. And you may have a phone, like, for example, in the telephone configuration video we did, we had a demonstration of a Yealink phone. They only had an activate and deactivate. But your phone, maybe it's a Grandstream, maybe it's a SNOM phone, and they only have a toggle. So there's your ability to look and find that. And once again, like I was telling you, you can click on the customization. It'll allow you to change it, and then you can enable it or even disable that feature code if you want to as well. So just realize all these different types of services that are being provided by the telephone system, your endpoint identifies what you're asking for by the feature code that is actually given to the phone system. And one of the biggest ones we always see people when they have problems getting voicemail, *97, that's what tells the phone system, hey, I am coming from this phone with this extension, I want to get that voicemail. If you go to any phone, you can actually dial *98 from the phone, and it'll actually prompt you for an extension and a password. So there's a couple of the feature codes you have to learn. So be very aware of these feature codes. After a while, you'll know them by heart, but that is what the feature code capability of the phone system's all about. So let's go ahead and move on and look at now the directories. Let's go to Applications, Directories. And real quick, just to make sure everybody got that, admin feature codes is how you see the feature codes. Okay, so let's go to Applications Directory. Now the directory is the dial by name directory that you have. So remember, we set up our IVRs, and we had this test IVR here. And remember, these can be used. Usually you put these on IVRs, and when someone presses a specific digit, then it goes to a directory, and that's 9 times out of 10 how you're going to access that. Sometimes I have people that actually route calls straight into a directory based off a certain service they're providing. But once again, we're going to go ahead and set this up and have this created, and it's real simple. Applications Directory, add the directory. Now remember, when you go into a multi-tenant environment, remember how we talked about the time groups and the time conditions, how important it was to be able to have the complexity of having different phone numbers being answered in different modes. And that's what one of the VoxIP capabilities is really nice, is you have the ability to run a ton of different companies on the system. The system is multi-tenant ready right out of the box. And this is one of the other features you'd want. You may have company A here, and then company B, and you want to have 2 totally different directories. Well, you can do that. It's just as simple as adding a directory. Give it a description, once again, if you've got a multi-tenant environment. You can even have a caller ID name prefix with your alert information. Remember how we talked about alert information? So if somebody dials off the directory, you can have a specific ring on your phone. You can leave the announcement in there, and the default announcement once again asks you to dial by first or last name. And then kind of like an IVR, how many retries, where they go, if they have an invalid destination. Once you add the directory, just run it back through it if you want to, or you can run it to an IVR anywhere you want to. It doesn't matter. And then after the name is spelled and correct, you can return to the IVR. Also, one of the neatest features here is we can announce or not announce. So let's say we have a CEO who's got a directory, but he wants people to be able to reach him, but he never wants anybody to know what his extension is. You can turn that off or turn it on. Okay. So last but not least for the directory is who's all going to be in that directory. Well, by default, you can just come over here and say all users, or you can come through here and select all the different users that are on your system. So once again, this gives you the multi-tenant capability. Once you hit that, just hit submit. The directory will be completed, and obviously hit apply. And then you can go to whatever applications like your IVR, and you can have that as a button option off that individual customer's auto attendant. So that's how simple it is to set up a directory. But once again, very powerful, very multi-configuration for a multi-tenant environment. And that's one of the things we really wanted. Some of the older systems, once again, we only had one directory, and off that one directory, you could never have different companies in that system because it wasn't a multi-tenant capable device, but the VoxIP system is ready to roll. Last but not least, let's talk about paging and intercom. Now, one of the neat things about SIP, remember, is we can have any type of endpoint that can register to our system via a SIP user authentication, connect to our system. Well, guess what? There's now SIP speakers, SIP analog SIP to analog converters, and also all the phones. So it's real simple to set up a paging group. All you need to do is give it a default paging extension. When that paging extension is defined and someone calls it, it'll multicast to all the endpoints that are in the system. Now this is where you would go and, like, let's say you had a old analog paging system. We would go get a SIP to analog. It's just a they call it like a little gateway, and we give the SIP gateway, the little paging gateway, an extension. Once it logs in, then the extension would come down here, and we would actually put it in our device list and select it, and that's how you can incorporate old paging systems. You also have the ability to have full duplex if that speaker has the ability to talk back through it. You also have the ability to, and you want everything to auto answer. Leave that on by default. But you also have the ability for page when somebody's busy to do certain features, and you can also have the ability to build in a paging scheduler for your system. So we're actually starting to use this for bell schedules for our schools. So the schools want to invest into new speaker system. They have legacy old metal style ring bells they want to get rid of. You can actually have this, and you can even have a custom tone, a custom message. Doesn't matter. So you can actually use the paging system to enable scheduling. Now, just FYI, that's an extra license you have to add on to the system to enable the schedule. This one already has it in this test system, but it's there if you want it. And you also, once again, as you can see here, you can have all kinds of message. One of the things we do for school districts is we do a lockdown building where they can actually page to a certain extension. We put a speed dial on, like the security resource officer or the principal, and then only the teachers know how to dial it. Once they dial it, it can play this custom message, lock down the building, active shooter, whatever you want to say. So paging is really powerful, and a lot of different vertical markets use it. But it's real simple. Set the paging extension, add the devices, and then come down here and use some of the other customizable features you want to use, how you want to custom this to this. Like, for example, we've got this in banks where people can actually page to when they page emergency at a bank. You can also add in miscellaneous destinations as well, and you could have the corporate headquarters know about the Piscataway, New Jersey bank just had a 911 or emergency page go off. So it's really flexible, and you got a lot of capabilities using this paging feature inside the VoxIP system. So that's how we do look at our system feature codes to work with our endpoints and enable services. We also have the ability to do in a single directory or multiple directories in a multi-tenant environment. And here's how we set up our page. And once again, the last thing I'd like to cover on the page, there is no infinite restriction on how many page groups you have. You can have a page group out to, let's say, to a gym, just to let the gym people know that, hey, this they don't have an overhead speaker or ringer out there, but a ringer bell, but you have an overhead speaker. You could actually page, time to dismiss class. So very custom capabilities for each individual, and you can slice and dice how you want it for all your customers. So the next video we're going to go into, we're going to look at some more of the ancillary services, and we'll get right back to you. Thank you.